And so we have an absolutely amazing group of women here based out of Atlanta, who you all know as homegrown stars. We hope to hear their real, true, honest accounts of what it takes to succeed as a woman of color in technology. Now, how many people in this room have struggled through something before? So I want to hear real, true stories of how you overcame that, correct? Because we all know what it looks like to take a victory lap. But I need to know what it looks like to actually get on the track field. Everybody with me? So with that being said, I'd like to call up now Verunda Prince-Jones, who is with Comcast, and she's the managing director of the Farm Boomtown Accelerator, a Comcast-sponsored accelerator. The farm, located in the new Battery Park, assists startups with innovations in mobility, connectivity, and communications while offering a variety of programs to support and nurture selected startups, including a 12-week accelerator directed by Boomtown. How many people in here have heard of Verunda's organization? Yes, that's great. And by the end of this program, everybody's hands will go up. As CEO, that's a raise. As CEO of V6 Consulting, Verunda empowers institutions to achieve educational equity and organizational leadership excellence as managing partner. Verunda is a proven leader of complex organizations focused on exceptional outcomes, adept at transforming the strategic into innovation, leading edge advantage and profitability through consultative collaboration. She has experience building and enabling high-performing teams to problem solve and execute flawlessly to deliver value-driven results. Verunda is naturally gifted at inspiring people of different competencies, talents, experiences, and perspectives. So are you ready to be inspired? Yes. All right, so Verunda, I'm going to give you a softball question. Real soft. You can take this wherever you like to. Tell us a little bit about the story behind that bio.
Ooh, girl.
You went there real quick. Do what you want to with it.
Wow. Okay, first of all, my name is Verunda.
Okay.
But it's okay, Natalie. I know it's a unique name, and I embrace it in all of this.
I'm glad you corrected me. Verunda, I apologize. Yeah.
Family members who still.
My mom called me Nancy.
Right, that's all right. That's all I love. So the story behind that, it's a whole lot of stuff.
Give us
like that.
a little bit of a story of triumph from that experience.
Let's say it started right here in Atlanta. I was sharing with someone that my elementary school is right down the street on Fair Street. It was in Atlas Jones. So I'm born, bred, raised here, went to Booker T. Washington High School. Oh, I can hear a whoop more with the marching band on it. So Atlanta is near and dear to my heart. I did leave it to go to school in Boston and wanted to be a chemical engineer. And fortunately, I had a very powerful, insightful, motivated person behind me, which was my mother, who told me I could do anything I wanted to. And my father, who was my first science teacher, I do not recommend that, having your dad be a science teacher in middle school, but he also showed me that women were really good in science and math, so that was never a concern of mine. I always knew. I was like, oh yeah, of course I can do this, why wouldn't I have to be able to do it? But, so behind that story, I have lots of stories about feeling isolated, feeling lonely, being the only one. I'm a first of a lot of firsts, and I don't necessarily say that with pride. I say that with just recognition of that's how it is. I say I'm the first of, I can say I was the first female woman of color who was an engineer at Procter & Gamble. And not at the entire company, because that would make me hell of a old. But I will say, let me finish that was in the organization of beauty care, and the shampoo and conditioner one product, Per Plus, I was the one that scaled that up for commercial success. So look at this as a 23-year-old woman of color, and I was charged with doing this. I had all white men who were far beyond me, both in years and experience, who were reporting to me. That was a challenge, and I did not have mentors to help me through that, but what I did have was my posse. I had my mom, I had my girlfriends that said, girl, you got this, you know you can do it. And so those nights when I would go home and I would cry and say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I would get up the next morning and it would be found. I would find a way to do it. There were times that I experienced, down times when I just didn't know how things were going to happen. There were times when I had to stand up for myself. There was a situation where I worked at Roman Haas. I can tell you the company now because they were bought by Dow Chemicals, so none of those people are probably around and working there anymore. But again, I was the only woman and the only person of color that was in a room of men, and we were working on a project together. And I noticed that every time we had a break and went to the restroom, we would come back and somehow the conversation had been advanced and decisions had been made, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Because when we left, we were at this point, and now we're back and we're at this point. So finally, I brought that to the attention of my colleagues and said, hey, I look and I understand that when you come back, you're at a different place, so I understand you continue the conversation, but that leaves me out of the loop, and I'm charged with making this happen, and I need to understand all of that process so that I can be fully engaged into it. And they said, oh, okay, we understand, yeah, we didn't mean anything by it, and I'm like, oh, okay, good. So then they did it again, and then they did it again, and I kept bringing it to their attention, so finally, after about the third time, I was like, okay, this is not working. So when they left for a break and went into the men's room, I followed behind them. And I was like, okay, well, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. Now, people were like, wow, that was a ballsy move. Maybe in hindsight it was, or maybe it was a stupid move, but first of all, they didn't have a chance to be doing anything in there, so I knew I wasn't embarrassing anybody. But secondly, I needed to kind of break that log jam. I needed to get across to them that this was important to me, and whether they knew it or not, it was important to them. I had to do something to get their attention. So they probably thought, "Ooh, this is a crazy black woman. So let's back up here." But it got their attention, and they didn't do that anymore because they knew I was going to follow them in the bathroom if they did. We just continued the conversation. So there are all those are kind of stories that I look back on now that helped shape me to where I am now. Painfully, in a lot of ways, lonely in a lot of ways, and just trying to figure the hell out myself sometimes, and not getting it right sometimes. Sometimes I didn't know when to step up, or when to say something, or when not to. I didn't know which battles to pick and which battles to fight. I had to figure it out as I went along. And I'm hopeful that part of what I'd like to do in this role is make it a little easier for somebody else to figure it out. Make it a little easier so that they have a sounding board or someone that they can say, look, she's doing this, I can do that too. I did not have that when I went to school. I went to MIT, and one of my best friends now is actually the chair of the chemical engineering department at MIT. And I look at her, I walked into her office, and I was like, girl, Paula, I am so damn proud of you, because do you know what it would have meant to me to walk into this office and see somebody like me sitting behind that desk? I am so proud of you holding the banner up for everybody else and for all these women that didn't have that opportunity. And here you are doing it, doing TED Talks, flying all over the world, meeting with, the president, sitting on these boards. And I'm like, girl, you are making it happen. And that to me is what it's all about, getting to these positions of influence. And yes, there are the pains, and there are the microaggressions, and there are the tears along the way. But at the end of it, if you can say, I advanced the ball not only for myself, but for some other people as well, and I pulled them along with me, it's all worth it.
Well, let me tell you, here you are, sharing your insights, being managing director at Boomtown, making a difference, and inspiring. I can say the exact same thing that you said to her, to you. So tell us, and you alluded to it a little bit, and I want to ask you a question later about unconventional strategies to get you to success. So I'm going to put a pin in that one. But tell us how
these experiences that you've had, the story behind the story and the story, have helped to shape the perspectives that you take and the approach that you take to working with entrepreneurs and coaching them through the process, particularly entrepreneurs of color?
Well, the approach I take is to mentor, but also to do it by demonstrating who I am as a person. I am unapologetically Black and a woman, and I embrace all of that and what that means. I hug people unabashedly, and whether they want it or not, I come in for that hug, and you have to like go like that, or else I do it. My team will sit here. They know that is me, but that is part of me loving my startup founders through whatever experience they're going through. I give them permission to articulate and to be vulnerable and to show that things aren't going right or things aren't going well, or maybe they're worried about something or they're having problems not in a business context, but it could be in a personal context. So my style of leadership is a very inclusive, I would say hands-on style. I work very long hours. Because I want my team and I want my companies to know that I understand where you are and you're not alone. I'm there with you, going through it with you. And I'm proof that you can go through this and come through and get out on the other side of it.
Awesome. So if we're talking to entrepreneurs and kind of want to give them a couple of tips about how to get into an accelerator, first let me ask you, for those in the room who may not know, what does an accelerator do? That's the first question. And then the next question will be, how does one position themselves in their business to actually be accepted into a program like the one that you run?
So an accelerator, generally speaking, is a program that has a finite time period associated with it, and it has an established curriculum. So you might have an incubator program, and that can be anywhere from 1 to 5 years. That may have what I call drop-in programming, where there may be workshops or other things offered. But then an accelerator program, typically there's an investment piece that's involved in it. So someone has invested in your company in return for some share of your company. Typically there is a curriculum that is associated with it, and you are required to participate at some level in that curriculum. And again, it's for a finite time period. Ours is for 3 months. We are actually in week 4 of 12 of our third cohort right now of 10 companies. So we do this, generally speaking, up to twice a year. In terms of your question about how to position yourself for an accelerator, the first thing is to research the accelerators, because not all accelerators are the same. You need to understand what it is that you're looking for, and then find an accelerator that matches your needs at that time. Some companies may say, all I need is funding. If that's the case, my accelerator is not for you, because that is not what we believe that companies that grow organically through customer growth are far better positioned than companies that grow based on a VC or debt kind of model. Nothing wrong with it, it's just a difference in philosophy. We are also very early stage in terms of our focus, because we want to build that muscle memory and those best practices that you can utilize not only at the beginning or as you start your company, but throughout as you build your company. So our philosophy is that way. There are other companies or other accelerator programs who emphasize different things. They may emphasize mentors, teaching. We have mentors who are coaches. So they volunteer to support and to help coach, but we don't allow them to necessarily teach. So those are those kinds of distinctions that you need to become aware of and understand. I would say the best thing that you can do is not only research, but then talk to people who have gone through their accelerator program. You get to meet Kendra later, who is one of the companies that went through our first accelerator program. Kendra and Hakeem from W.O.C are here. If you want to know more about the farm, don't necessarily talk to me, because you might think I'm trying to sell you, but talk to people who have gone through it, who've experienced it, and ask them, what did you get out of it? Did it meet your expectations? Were there any disappointments? So do your homework to understand what's required, and then once you decide which accelerator program you'd like to be in, figure out what are the criteria. I can tell you quite simply, at the farm, we look at a couple of criteria. One is we look at the founders. Who are the people that are doing this? What's their backgrounds? Why are they passionate about this? What have they done to say that they have a particular expertise in this space? And then the second thing is, what's the pain point? How innovative is their approach to it? So we're looking at those two factors and making a judgment call based on what we see and what we know and the landscape of, is this an innovative idea or is it a variation of something that I've seen 1,000 times? One of the good things about being in the position that I am in is that I get to travel the world meeting startup companies, and so I get to fill in the landscape of what innovation looks like. I can tell, have I heard this before or not? For example, in the last 3 months, we have touched in some way over 500 companies. So either out at pitch competitions or at conferences or by meeting people, emailing, but some way we've connected with. So if you do 500 companies in over a 3-month period, you start to fill in the dots fairly quickly in terms of what that landscape looks like. So those are the 2 major factors that we as an accelerator will be looking at.
What do you tell the person that applies and doesn't get accepted for a multitude of reasons, including their business was not the type of business that you all would both invest in as well as support through your programming, or quite frankly, they may not need to have venture capital investment. So what do you say to that person? Because I think a lot of times there's such a small percentage of people who actually get into these programs, right? Whatever they are. I don't know if we talk enough to people who don't get into them about what they can continue to do on their pathway to success.
That's a great question, because you're right, not every company will be accepted, at least the first time. So we say, keep trying. You may not have gotten in because you're too early to really demonstrate that you have a viable product or viable business idea, but if you keep working on it, you will get to that point. So that is one of the things that you might want to look at. Also, ask the accelerator program, why did I not get in? What was lacking? What would you like to see? I would say if you are persistent and you're committed to your idea, listen to the feedback that you get from people who are making that determination, but we also get it wrong. We're not infallible. So just because you hear a no from us, that does not mean that you have a bad idea or that there's not worth to that. It might mean no for us because we don't think we're in a position to help you. It could be no for now. You still need to grow and develop your company to a certain point that you get to, and then we can help you. It might mean no, and we're wrong. So don't let your dream or don't let your commitment be determined by what someone else thinks about your business and your idea.
I love that you said that, particularly it could be no and we're wrong. Because I think a lot of times, particularly for organizations that don't have a lens of appreciating diversity, it's almost as though it's no and this isn't important, right? And I think a lot of us walk away from experiences feeling as though whatever we were working on or doing just didn't matter to anybody. And that's not always the case. It could just be a no and we were wrong. But I don't think even in the VC community and the investment community that people say that enough, right? And I think a lot of startup founders are more inclined to be told to get accustomed to failing on their side than the other side of that, which is that an investment team could fail to acknowledge a new innovation that was right before them. So a failure can happen on both sides of the equation. So I love that. Okay, speaking of failures, talk to us about some strategies that people should not take or approaching someone for financing for their business. So these are strategies you should not be taking.
Okay, let's underscore that. Do not do this. Do not approach your investor for the first time and expect to be getting a check. You need to approach it as a long-term investment in time and effort in a relationship to get to know you. Investors tend to invest with people that they know on some level and that they feel comfortable with. I'm doing that in air quotation marks, but that they feel comfortable with and that they've established some kind of relationship or rapport with over time. So do not expect the first time that they meet you, yes, I'm going to write this check. That is not going to happen. The other thing is, do not go to a VC or to any investor and really not be able to quickly articulate what your value proposition is. You need to be able to, whether it's a 2-second elevator pitch or a 5-minute coffee or a 7-minute pitch, you need to be able to articulate very quickly what it is you're offering, who finds it valuable, and why they find it valuable, and at what price point. Very quickly, very succinctly, because if you can't do that, if you can't tell people in a way that they get your idea, they're not going to support it at all.
Okay.
I would say the third thing that you do not do is don't expect someone to do the work for you. Don't expect an investor to say, oh, and here you go, Brenda, Natalie, there you go do this. No, they need to see that you are committed to doing this, that you are doing the work, and then they will probably reciprocate with providing some kind of resources in terms of help or feedback and so on. And don't end the deal by just not having an ask. I don't care whatever it is. An ask might be, and can we connect again in 3 weeks or in 3 months? The ask might be, and do you know of other people that might be particularly interested in it? But always have an ask. Otherwise, you have wasted your time, you wasted their time. So be clear about what your objective is for that meeting and that engagement, and be focused on that and close it out with that ask.
So here's my kind of second to last question. It has to do with more traditional funding models, right? So going in to get a bank loan. If you have any experience in that, how, for the audience, is that different than going for venture capital and going for investment from angel investors? And is the approach different at all?
Well, the approach is different because the risk profile of those groups are going to all be very different. Part of the reason why there is venture capital because they're taking a greater risk, or assuming a greater risk for a greater upside. Banks are on the other end of the spectrum. They're not really, they're trying to mitigate their risk or de-risk it as much as they possibly can. So there's that continuum. Angel investors may have a different risk profile, and it will differ from investor to investor, from industry to industry. So you need to understand what is the risk profile, and geographically too, because investors here in Atlanta have a very different risk profile from investors that are out in Silicon Valley or the investors that might be in Boston. So you need to understand what that risk profile is, and then be able to demonstrate what you are doing to do risk that for the investor, so that it is easy for them to say, yes, I can do this, and this is why, and I can see that I'll get an investment. The other thing is know what you're asking for and what you're getting from your investor. Not all investors are created equally. Some want to simply give you the money and that's it. Some want to be part of the company and be part of running and helping to lead it. But you need to understand what it is that you need and what it is that their expectation is, so that you can get the right fit. If it's not the right fit, you need to walk away from that money and make sure that you get the right fit.
So I asked that question just because I want to make sure that everybody in the audience is clear about the differences in the types of financial capital that you can get for your business. Because sometimes I do believe that people are going for VC when they could be going for a bank loan for their company, and they may not need VC funding. And in getting VC funding, you are going to be giving up a percentage of your business. You may be giving up a percentage of your business on the other side if you can't pay your loan back.
So try friends and family.
That's right.
Friends and family, bootstrapping, customer acquisition, those are all ways that you can grow, but you maintain, as you said, the control of your company.
That's right. And so even with the bootstrapping piece, so have you seen any, so one of my good girlfriends, her name is Dawn Dixon, and she used to be actually based out of Atlanta for a little bit. She created Flat Out of Hills. Now she has a, do you know Dawn? You do? Oh yeah, she's awesome. She's like my mentor to me. But she now has a kind of like a kiosk, a portable kiosk that she's created that has face visualization detection, all that kind of stuff. And she did an equity crowdfunding campaign for her business. And so I want to, as we talked about traditional financing, we've talked about angel, we've talked about VC, I want to talk a little bit about non-traditional, which would be crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. And is there a difference between the two? Is there a difference between
Absolutely. So, I mean, you're talking about things like Kickstarter, where people are doing, if you raise this amount of money, then you get the whole thing. If you don't, then you don't get part of it. So look again, and I would say this for everything, look at what you're trying to accomplish in your business. Is it maintaining control? How much money are you raising? And before you raise any money, ask yourself, what are you going to do with that money? One of the things that we see over and over again is that companies focus on raising money, but when you ask them, what are you going to do with that money, they don't really have a viable answer. That's very, very dangerous, because we all know with our own budgets, if you have extra money, you're a little less vigilant about how you spend that money. But if you have very tight budget and controls, you're much more attentive to how you're spending that money. So when you're going to, I don't care if it's a VC, Kickstarter, crowdfunding, equity, friends and family, whatever you're doing with that money, be very, very clear what the purpose of it is. Because if you can't answer someone saying, okay, so you want to raise $5 million, what are you going to do with it? Blank space.
That's right.
You just lost that deal. You just lost all credibility.
Yeah.
And don't say, well, I think I need it to grow.
Wow.
But specifically, like, have the details, understand exactly what the purpose of that money is.
And also recognizing too that people are investing their own money into you, especially angels. And so I think even as we're talking about diversity and inclusion as it relates to investment, we need more, we want more, but nobody has an obligation to give you any of their personal money, right? And so the approach need not be combative, it need not be aggressive in that, from that perspective. It should always be value add. We know you have it, you know you have it. The deal is about letting them know that they need it, and not that they ought to be doing anything with you. Because if you think about it like your kids asking you for $5 to go somewhere, you don't have the obligation to give them that $5. They have to tell you what they're going to do with that, correct? Because at the end of the day, that's your money that you're choosing to give to them. And you just want to think about it when you think about it like that in terms of how you're approaching people. And I love that you said you should always have another ask even when you hear a no. And it shouldn't always just be about money. It could be about introduce me to someone so that I can connect with them to learn about other ways that I can scale my business. Because here's the truth. You're in business the moment you make your first dollar, and you can scale your business through revenues and revenues alone. And quite frankly, we are also at a point in time where there are a lot of people who are afraid to take on debt. We did a research study with the Small Business Administration and talked to hundreds of Black women across the country. And one of the reasons that they were not receiving loans is because they were not going after loans because they did not want any additional debt. And so there are good forms of debt. We know that there are bad forms of debt. So if you have that Gucci, that Fendi, those things, unless you're doing what Monique is doing with her business, where's Monique? And selling them online, you really need to think about where you're putting your money at this moment, okay? So I want to close by speed round. This is off the cuff, so we're going to see what comes out of my mouth right now.
I'm an engineer. We don't do things off the cuff. We're always thinking through it.
Okay. All right. Brazil, Nigeria. Next best trip.
God, yes,
Yeah,
Nigeria. Nigeria.
Oh, have you been?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. For investment in your business for a Black entrepreneur, Atlanta or Silicon Valley?
Oh, definitely Atlanta.
I knew you were.
Absolutely. That's not even a question.
Are you going to go see Hustlers or no?
Are you kidding me?
I just wanted a real answer because I love that movie. All right. I don't know if I have anything else. I think that's it. I think I want to close there. I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to ask you if you have any gems that you want to share with anybody before I close out in advance of you.
I just want to say thank you all for listening, both to my hardship stories and maybe to my bio, which I was like, I have definitely gotten to shorten that thing. But listening, and the gem that I would say is you are in this together. Keep that in mind. Pull somebody forward, push them forward, lift them higher. Do that. Be the wing, the wind beneath somebody else's wings. It will pull you up as well. That is my gem.
Awesome. All right, let's give her another round of applause. Thank you.
first in welcoming to the stage Martise Sutton, founder of Girls Going Global, who will lead our Women of Color in Tech panel discussion, as well as our dynamic list of panelists. We have Doll, Amanda, Tiffany, Tracy, Lynette, and Kendra to take us away. Ladies.
Tonight has been so awesome. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. And I think this evening, I think we'll kind of start by doing the standard kind of panel, what's your why? Give us a quick gist of how you started your company, why you're here. A little bit about myself. I am born and raised in Philadelphia. West Philadelphia, born and raised on a playground, yes. But attended Spelman College. I did not stay in Atlanta afterwards. My first job was in India, and then I came back and started an organization and social enterprise to have other Black girls like myself travel and see the world. So that's how I ended up back in Atlanta and doing the work that I do. So I'm really excited to hear more about how all of you are really making an impact in tech. So let's just start down the line and give me the brief, literally brief. Give me the 5 words if you had to describe your company. What is your company? What do you do? Where are you from? Go.
Hi all, my name is Kendra Ward. I am from Stone Mountain, Georgia. I love my people. I went to Spelman College.
I know, girl. Hey.
I did their dual degree program. I did engineering at the University of Southern California. The name of my company is called W.O.C, and we are a platform that analyzes the employee experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Gatlin, and I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I came to Atlanta to attend Clark Atlanta University. Shout out to WC. And my company is called Latched and Hook Beauty, and what we do is we create non-toxic, biodegradable and recyclable synthetic hair extensions for Black women to prevent scalp irritation for Black women.
Hi everybody, my name is Amanda Sabria. I'm from North Carolina. I did not go to Spelman. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. Yes, yeah. I run 2 companies. I run Partner, which is developer code and analytics. So we build artificial intelligence that can scan any code repository or about a code repository about 15 languages and tell developers where they have bug rates, etc. So we are geared towards going into small teams and telling them where their risks are and who's better to work on the projects. I run another company that's a consulting firm because we are completely bootstrapped. So I have to figure out how to pay 6 people every month. So we basically have consulting contracts that do analytical marketing work using the same software for about 4 companies that we also took minority equity in. So that's what I did.
Hey y'all. I'm Doll Avant. I was born and raised right here in the SWAT, ATL in the building. I graduated from Frederick Douglass High School, Astros all day. I left Atlanta, went to Boston, went to Harvard University. I am a data scientist and an historian and economist by training. My company is Aquagenuity, where water meets ingenuity. We use data to help consumers, corporations, and cities understand what's in their water in real time. And that's really important because everybody is seeing Flint happen, and now Newark is happening. But guess what? It's not an anomaly. There are actually 3,000 locations in the United States with more lead in their water than Flint, Michigan. Everybody marches in the streets and they're upset with the governor. They see it as a political issue, but I'm a data scientist. It's actually a data issue. And so instead of waiting for people to get sick to find out what's in their water, now there's an app for that.
My Kissick, and I'm with Gooder. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. Gooder is a sustainable food waste management company, and what that means is we pick up the extra food from restaurants, convention centers, airports, and instead of it going in the garbage, we donate it to nonprofits that directly feed the food insecure or the hungry.
Hey everybody. Hey. Thanks guys for having me. My name is Tracy Pickett. I'm also an Atlanta native, SWAT. Went to Tri-Cities High School, went to Spelman College, and UGA for law school. So I'm a lawyer by trade, but always been passionate about entrepreneurship. Left my job 2.5 years ago at a Fortune 5 company to pursue that passion. My first company was called W.O.C. We created culturally relevant emojis like Won't You Do It and the One Atlanta emojis that just came out not long ago. And then my second company is called Hairbrella. It's the rain hat reinvented. We basically created a rain hat that insulates women's hair from the rain while protecting their style because it seems to rain. It rains like a curse every time I get my hair done. Past 15 years, without fail. So yes, that solves that problem, and I am busy building that business.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we're going to get started, and actually, Amanda, the first question is going to be for you, because I think that what's important to talk about here is sometimes we hear the word tech and it seems super lofty, right? It's like, if I'm not starting an app, if I'm not solving hunger through a remote, you know, how am I able to contribute to this space? And so I think it's so important to hear about how everyday women like ourselves have utilized tech, have created careers and careers for other people as well. So can you start, Amanda, can you start with a little bit more about the why behind your company? Because you've been able to take two different industries per se, creatives and tech, and bring it together to partner. What was that why for you, and why is it so important for that to be a venture right now?
Yeah, definitely. So as most of my friends will tell you, I'm just a big nerd. So I get up every morning, I pick up a book. I go to sleep every night. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. I put myself to sleep with a book. And I started doing more research around data and admiring data scientists, and saw that it was now the hottest commodity in the world. It is hotter than oil, and it's hotter than gold. But I also noticed that there was a gap, that most people were building data companies to have corporate advancement, right? So I want all of your data so that I can harvest it and then make more money off of you. So I started asking myself, how do I use data to actually help people help themselves? And it has not been an easy journey. There have been a lot of tears, a lot of people telling me there's no way you can bootstrap a data company, but we're doing pretty well now. So my why is, at the end of the day, no matter how many enterprises that we bring on as customers, I know at the end of the day, it's an individual tool. It is made for the individual person to understand more about themselves through data so that they can go further in their careers or whatever they want to do. So many people on the other side of the aisle are using data in such strategic ways that I think that sometimes our community doesn't really tap into. And so that was my why of how do I bring this data back to my community and help them leverage it and empower their own advancement.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, you could pass to our data scientist. I have you written as my woman of water, doing all things amazing and possible to help us, the everyday consumer, learn more about what's inside our water through her app. And I actually had a group of girls in Italy last month, and they all hated the water, and I was so ignorant because I kept being like, you know, drink the water, right? Like, why are you taking me through all this for water? I had no idea that water has so many different contaminants and, you know, all the things, and so I thought it was amazing. They kind of educated me about your app, actually. So I was excited to be able to be here and hear more about how you've been able to really grow and prosper in this industry, particularly knowing that there's a gender and racial biases and gap. What has been the one thing that's led you to success or be able to really, you know, make strides?
Well, they call me the pitch queen. for a reason. And I think it's just really important for any entrepreneur to really be able to communicate what you're doing, the value of what you're doing, why it's unique, and why should I care, right? And you have to do that whether you're in front of a room or whether you're in the elevator, because you literally don't know who the person is that you're speaking to. It's been a journey for me, a personal one, but I've just been telling my story about how I discovered this data, discovered that there are 3,000 Flints in the United States, discovered that the Aaron Brockovich chemical that was known to cause cancer in a California town, they made a cool movie about it, but it's in water systems across all 50 states. It's not regulated by the EPA. There's 80,000 chemicals that are approved to be used in industrial processes in this country that are not illegal, that we know cause all types of health issues. So this is just not a third world issue. Our infrastructure in this country is 100 years old. It's crumbling. It's received a D rating. I mean, we can go on and on. So I just tell my story. It affected me personally. My father actually passed away from complications due to his water, and it really made me think about how many people are being affected by water, air quality, have no idea. Alzheimer's linked to water, diabetes linked to water, it's cancer, it goes on, and people are like, what? Your water's doing that? I'm like, yes. Your curl, we talk about hair, your curls are not popping, you moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta, you're like, man, my hair used to be, I don't know, it's probably your water. It has so many implications in all of our lives, and it's really just, as an entrepreneur, finding the biggest problem that you are uniquely qualified to solve and being very effective at sharing that story. And I figured out I was doing a good job because NASA called, and then Google called, and then the United Nations called, and we're winning in these streets. But yeah, it's about not being afraid to solve the biggest problem you can go after.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Lynette, I wanted to touch with you because you're someone who wasn't the founder of the company that you're working with, Gooder, but definitely been able to take a senior role and run with it. So can you speak to those that may be looking for a career in tech or want to be a part of a tech startup, not the founder, but how they can come in, own a piece of their role, and really be able to create an impact?
Sure. So being a part of a founding team and not necessarily the founder is entrusting you to take their idea and make it come into fruition.
Say so.
So it is definitely, it's rewarding in that you get to see something, a vision, come to light. For us, it's especially rewarding because we're, at the end of the day, helping feed people. So being an entrepreneur and just being a leader in a startup can sometimes be stressful in that it's constant day to day. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5. You're working every day, but at the end of the day, it is very rewarding and worth it. So.
Yeah, thank you. Let's pass down to Kendra so that we can talk a little bit more about, I looked at you as young, gifted, and black, all the things that we aspire to be. And I want to hear from you more about what that experience has been like for you. I started my social enterprise when I was 22. And I felt like I had no support. I was just this little black girl out there trying to raise capital, and I didn't feel like I had any support, not only monetarily, but also, networking, mentors, advisors. So what has that experience been like for you now that we're, 8 or 9 years after the fact? Has there been any improvements? What would you say to the young person in the room today that's looking to start?
You have to have a network. A network is so powerful, and sometimes it's actually hard to tap into those networks, and you find that you have to just stay persistent. And so for me, I was fortunate enough to go to Spelman and the University of Southern California. And so at Spelman, I learned something extremely important, was the independence of a black woman is needed within the world. When I went to Spelman, when I went to the University of Southern California, I learned about a collaborative environment, 2 totally different things. And so I was able to tap into both networks, and they helped me. And so if I have a question, call your Spelman sister. If there was anything that I needed at U.S.C., I could reach out to a professor that probably doesn't even remember my name, but they're gonna help me because I went to USC. It's literally just like that. And so we need that network, that community. We need to be able to tap someone else on the shoulder. And so me being young, I look young. I walk into these rooms. I'm walking into rooms with human resource representatives that don't traditionally look like me. I need my network to tell me how to work the room, the politics behind the room. The network was extremely important for me, and so for anyone, regardless of age, the network will get you further, if anything.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. And you can pass to Tiffany for me, please, our crochet queen. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you were able to really appeal to the everyday consumer, you know, and say, like, we're in the beauty industry, what that experience was like for you, you know, entering tech, maybe sometimes being seen as not, you know, impactful, you know, because it might be seen as something sexy or frivolous to some. What was that experience like for you to make sure that people knew that I should be taken seriously? I'm a corporate executive, you know, showing people your receipts. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I would not say that people necessarily looked at me as because I'm dealing with a hair product or a beauty product that it was sexy. My main struggle is people not understanding what hair extensions is. So that's my first barrier to entry, is trying to, when I'm talking to someone that doesn't look like me and has the ability to lend their resources, is being able to break down that first, because I'm considered like an unknown founder kind of in this space, because this is not really, my sector is not necessarily traditional. When you think about tech, you do think about apps. You know, I consider my company green tech, because what I'm doing is trying to take a product that's been around for 50 years and it hasn't been advanced since. And I'm trying to make this product non-toxic, because there's 27 million women every year spending over $60 billion on hair extensions and potentially dying from using hair extensions because of the toxins that are in them. And having to explain how there could be a correlation between breast cancer and Black women who are wearing synthetic hair extensions, trying to explain all of those things. And creating a product that is not only better for the consumer, but also is better for the environment. So thinking about, you know, being that this fiber is a polymer, which is like the plastic, that it can possibly be biodegradable, it can be recyclable. So therefore, this product can also be great for our environment. So having to break down and explain all of those things and really bring people into a whole new, you know, atmosphere that they're not, you know, that they've never been privy to before, has been difficult. You know, not sexy, but difficult.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and I'm not
traditional.
Yeah.
You know, like it's an untraditional product. So you know what I mean, and be able to pitch that versus again the standard app that's gonna maybe be in finance or something like that. So
right. And so, you know, for those of you who maybe transition from corporate, as a corporate professional to an entrepreneur, which is what I did, you may not have, or may not have graduated from HBCU, may not have had connections, and you don't have resources. What I would say is that you need to be resourceful, meaning that you can't let not being able to call your Spelman sister or your AUC sister, your Howard sister, or whoever, your professor, or anybody stop you from figuring out whatever it is that you're trying to do, you have to be resourceful. If this is a passion of yours and this is something that you truly believe in, you have to be resourceful and you have to kind of get out there, get your hands dirty, hear the no's, you know, get your feelings hurt a little bit, fail, because for some reason we have this thing about failing is a bad thing. Like failing is a good thing because hopefully you're learning something out of it. And then you can move on and do something different because you learn from your experience. So.
Thank you. Can you pass all the way down to Tracy? I'm coming to you. So you're a serial entrepreneur, or at least that's what I would describe you as. Talk to us a little bit about, you started your first company. What was the biggest win there? And then what made you transition to say, I'm going to start in a whole new industry? What was that like for you? And what was the real deciding factor that made you say, I'm going to go ahead and try this out?
So I wrote a letter to myself going into law school that I wasn't going to practice for more than 5 years before I kind of took the jump. And I knew that I was going to get used to the corporate lifestyle and the corporate salary. But it was a promise I made. So I actually quit on my 5th anniversary. I started my first company though 3 years before that. And so I made sure that I kind of tested out one of my ideas with some co-founders, made sure people actually responded to it and also thought it was a good idea. The biggest win with W.O.C was that we got to #2 paid in the entire app store. We beat Kim Kardashian, Ellen DeGeneres had an app at the time. Minecraft, whatever that app is, we beat them. That was actually 3 years ago yesterday. So that was a huge win, huge validation. I was able to pull a co-founding team together. 3 of those were from Georgia Tech. And they were wonderful, and I just felt like, you know what, I can do this, right? But that wasn't my favorite idea. That was my, let's try it and still keep my job idea, right? So Hairbrella was my, all right, we've got to do this. Because I knew that the issue of women going to get their hair done, going to blow dry bars, trying to, mail carriers, flight attendants, women did not have a way to protect their hair, and women spend $80 billion on their hair every year across the world, and countless hours. My story was that I was walking across campus going to an on-campus interview and did not know it was going to rain. I had about 10 minutes to get across campus to be on time, and I did not have an umbrella. And the umbrella really wouldn't have helped as much as I needed to, but it would have been better than running with a bag on my head across campus. So I looked a hot mess when I got there. And I said, you know what, I'm over here, really trying to better myself. I'm going to law school. I got this job opportunity, I don't have no speeding. I'm a good citizen. Like, why of all things, like, why am I dealing with this problem? This seems like a simple problem, okay? We don't get in the shower without a shower cap. Why am I walking outside without something to protect my hair? Found out that wasn't, there was nothing on the market. I asked God, I said, God, give me a sign. I had a little bit of savings. I was going to put that into a patent. That was kind of my first step. I'm like, I'm not doing this if someone else is just going to steal my idea. So need to apply for the patent, ask God for a sign. Drove to Atlanta, had dinner with my parents at Nikado on Cheshire Bridge, really good hibachi grill. And Sarah Blakely sat next to me at our hibachi table. That's the founder of Spanx. I pinched my mom. She didn't even know who she was. I said, Mom, that's Sarah Blakely right there. So I'm about to do this. She said, oh, yeah, you are. And you're about to talk to her. So I talked to her, pitched the idea. She said, I feel like you should definitely go for it. And the rest is history. I was like, God, you ain't got to tell me nothing else. I'm going to do this. And at every step of the way, even though it has gotten very difficult at times, there were times where I ran out of money. But the thing is, I feel like you have to do is go as far as you can with whatever you got. And if you can show that faith, and you can show that, hey, even if I get embarrassed, even if I fall flat on my face, you find that things keep showing up as you keep showing up for the vision or passion or the idea that you have.
Yeah, and you already touched on this a little bit, but I want each of you to quickly go down the line and talk about what has been your biggest failure. Because I know we always share our wins. We always celebrate people starting, but my latest thing has been we need to celebrate more the people that keep going or the people that keep going when it gets tough. So speak to me about, your biggest win, but also your biggest failure for each of you.
For me, I feel like I really missed an opportunity to monetize WO.C as much as it could have been by chasing shiny objects. So that meant contracts with Getty Images and a contract with the city of Atlanta and making an app for a social media influencer because it was a check right then, but then we kind of abandoned the core product. So now I'm like reverting back to do that. So for me, yeah, when you're an entrepreneur, you can make things happen. There are going to be a lot of opportunities that come. But if you get on focus with what the core mission is, like the real problem you were trying to solve, then you end up losing time, losing traction, and sometimes risk someone else coming along and going further because they stay focused.
For Gooder, ours is very similar to yours, and it was chasing the money. So as an entrepreneur, you have to find a way to perfect your craft. So that might mean you can't service every single vertical that you could potentially service right away. You might have to start with, the top 5 or the top 2. Don't necessarily chase every single contract that comes your way because it could be, might not be ready for that contract, or you can get the contract and find out, well, this is not the vertical you necessarily want to go after. So just really focus and perfect, I would say the top 3, depending on what your service is, verticals.
You said win and loss. Our biggest win with Opportunity has been kind of staying focused to the point. When you walk into a room and everybody's old and white and gray and they're really looking at you almost like low-key, like hating, like, surely you came up with this? Like, this is yours. And I'm like, yes, it is. I invented this, I invented the water score, very similar to a credit score. It tells you 0 to 100, 100 is good, 0 is bad. And they're like, wait, it's almost like, you thought of this? I didn't think of this? And I'm like, yes, I did, right? So staying on that path, and according to Google, we are now the world's largest water database. And they put us, right? And my mind is like, wait. Because they put us on the homepage of Google, not the search results, like the homepage. And so it's like, wait, my friend was like, wait, they don't put nobody on the homepage, but like Martin Luther King. And I was like, I know. So that was a win, because it was very hard to stay focused, because, I'm stand up though. For this fail, y'all. Now, I'm from the A, so I'm going to blame it on the transplants. I don't know what's going on in the A right now. But all these people out in these streets telling y'all what they can do, and they're going to help you, and they want to be on your team. Do not give these people equity in your company. Do not let them distract you with the lies and the foolishness. You feel like, oh, I need a team, I need a co-founder, I need a, and you're out here running because you're trying to get an accelerator, you're trying to do this, and so you gotta have a team. You better follow your peace. I sound like somebody's grandmama right now. But like, just like, slow down. Like, if you meet somebody, it's like, man, their resume is dope, and they're talking to right and da-da-da, but something just in my spirit. You better listen. That's all I gotta say.
I'm gonna second that. So, team is your number 1 important thing. It can absolutely kill you, even when you are progressing in the traditional terms of business. If the team isn't right, it will bring you down. So I totally agree. I give people lots of equity that are no longer here. I've had to go back. I've had to ask for the equity back. I've had to threaten, I'm going to shut this down and open it back up. It's a headache, and it causes a lot of unwarranted stress on top of everything else that you have going on. So yes, be careful about your team. Don't give out too much equity, but you can still be creative with the deal structure and how you bring them in. I will say though, my number 1 failure was trying to prove myself to somebody that told me I wasn't set out for it. And I was in Chicago. So Partner started as a whole different company. It started as a creative marketplace. And I was like, okay, I have this idea, I have a little bit of traction, I'm gonna go raise some VC, thinking that was my route. Went to Chicago, met with the VC, and as we were wrapping up, he said, you're really talented. Do you know Sue Kim? And Sue Kim is an Asian woman that built Brilliant.org. She's actually a good friend of mine now. And I said, no, I don't know Sue Kim. And he said, you remind me of Sue Kim, but she can code. And I said, just like we all said, huh? I was like, awkward. It was awkward, but it was like, he was saying it in a way of, you're not really cut out for the tech world. And so from that, I started chasing shiny objects to try and show, no, I am built out for this. Long story short, raised $100,000 in friends and family capital, wasted it on bad code, which led me to this idea of building developer analytics. So at the end of the day, if you have a vision and you have faith on that vision and you know that you're there for a reason, God will have your back. This idea, the business that we're building now is 10 times better than the business that we were building before. But focus and team. It will feel small. Even now, I'm like, this feels so small. But the riches are in the niches. I believe in that, and I stand by that.
My biggest win so far in business, 2014, I had this idea to prevent women from hot water burns by creating the first pre-curl and loop crochet hair. So crochet hair was not on the market in 2014. Crochet, the technique, had been around for decades. But I kept seeing these women on social media rolling their hair and dipping it in hot water, put all these towels around them to prevent themselves from burning themselves. And I was like, sis, that's real cute, but I'm not getting involved in that. And I remember going to the beauty supply store trying to find hair that was already like pre-curled, and nothing existed. No packaging had crochet hair. There was no synthetic hair other than cheap braiding hair. So I created a prototype, sent it to a manufacturer, and I launched a company called Curl Colon Hair Collection in May of 2015, Mother's Day. That was my biggest win. That was my baby. The fail was I didn't trust the vision that God gave me to be able to run this company by myself. And I confided in someone else and was like, hey, I got this idea, brought on a partner, didn't have a valid business partnership, didn't have a valid business operating agreement. And we made $500,000 in the first 7 months of business. And I got my business taken from me. And I was in litigation for 3 years trying to fight to get my business back. But because I had really bad legal contracts, it wasn't really anything I could do. I was kind of like in this space that I really couldn't get out of. Somebody was going to have to pretty much give. Another company actually came in 2018 and acquired the business. So I ended up selling my ownership in the company and letting that business go. But I think if you speak to any business owner, if you ask them about how they feel about selling their business or their business being acquired, even if it has money attached to it, they're not going to be like, oh my God, I'm so excited about it. It's like the best thing I ever did. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to say that. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, it hits me in my gut. It's a really bad morning feeling. So although I've moved on and I have a new company, I still have a real sensitive spot for the first company that I had. So my fail was being so excited about the idea, but not setting up my paperwork properly so that in the event that something happened, that it could be properly litigated. So I use my experience to talk to other entrepreneurs about be excited about the idea, but don't be so quick to go out and execute the idea without, putting certain, policies in place.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Standpoint, because as a founder, you are the business. And so my personal failure would be not understanding my strengths in the beginning. And so I would do things that I was good at or I enjoyed doing, but I had certain strengths that I wasn't tapping into that would have helped my company get further at a quicker amount of time. So having to have that self-awareness and understanding, it's really important. And then I'd say the win would be understanding and saying no sometimes. We're so invested on trying to get customers and money that will say, yeah, we can do it. But if it's not what your product is intended to do, and let's also not get this confused with understanding your customer and what they need. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's completely deviating from what your product is supposed to do, but you can do it. And so one of our wins were that we said no. Fortune 500 company could have had the contract, but it wasn't what we were doing. They wanted something that we weren't providing. And so understanding how that could have taken us back from getting to where we are, a product where we actually have customers on it, where we're receiving the feedback that we need for the product to get better. That's where we are now. So that's one of the biggest wins, not saying yes to every customer.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Will somebody have one more?
Say one more thing about team. You really struck that. One of the biggest learnings I've learned, and I had to get rid of an entire team and rebuild the team. And the biggest learning I've taken from that is a business is not a summer camp, meaning you can get along with somebody really, really well, and they can really buy into your vision, but they still might not be the right person. And so I had to learn that the hard way of having people that really wanted to work hard and wanted to see the vision through, but just were not the right people with the right skills that the business needed to get off the ground. So when you're looking for a team, there are people on my team that we're not buddy-buddy, but we get each other, and they do something really, really well that I will never be able to do well. And so I think being a little bit more conscious in how you build your team outside of we get along really well is very important.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think it's important for all of us to take away from this, if nothing else, that when you make a lot, you're going to grieve things, you know what I mean? Whether it's a team member, I had to fire my first person, that hurt. When you lose your business, that hurts. Like, you find yourself in situations that it doesn't matter, it still feels like a loss, even when it's a win for the long term. So this was a great discussion. I think one way for us to wrap up, we'll just do a rapid fire. Give me what success is for you in one word. Go down the line, and we're going to call it a night. Go, Kendra.
Success for me is
one word.
I missed that. Success for me is listening. It's listening.
Generational wealth.
Boom.
Peace.
Boom.
World domination.
Happiness.
Yeah.
Billions.
So cool. Thank you, ladies. This was an amazing night, right? Yes. So these women dropped so many jewels, words of wisdom, but but unfortunately we have come to the end of our time together. We just wanted to thank all of our speakers, thank our partner Compact, thank you Brenda for all of your amazing wisdom, thank you Natalie for this beautiful vision that is growing with leaps and bounds. If you have any additional questions for the speakers or the panelists, please proceed outside after our